Public service announcement for the record. I don't know how all my videos now they're not uploading, which I like because I can't download them then. And remember I did this not for you or the world, although they are very as basic and elementary as they are, you'd be surprised. They're pretty informational, I think, if you can sort through some of the silliness and nonsense, some of the lulls. There's some pretty good information about life, the Bible, some practical ways to live and see the world. There really is. Um, I'll go ahead and say probably as good and best way you can a person can live if you could keep sin out of your life completely. You do just fine. But I noticed all my videos somehow, it's like, did somebody hack me? I had all my videos. Like when you go to make a video, it defaults to no, it's not made for kiddies. No, we're not in the kiddie section. No, never were. Not with binoculars or in the library or anywhere. The park, nowhere, ever, never. So I don't know how all of a sudden they got made for children again. So I went and had to change all those. So hopefully there's none of those. Because I agree. I will agree. It's like if I was a parent, I can be a little, I can get full of energy. I can get passionate. I can get, I talk about some adult topics that, yeah, even myself, I probably wouldn't want, I wouldn't mind certain, but as a parent, I'd probably want to watch it first and make sure, you know, and so I wouldn't want to make a video knowing that I might accidentally swear or I might do something occasionally or I might say something that's maybe a little rude or sarcastic that maybe that's not, you don't want your kid to see that. That's fine. I understand. I wouldn't, I understand from my view, I feel the same way about a lot of stuff. So it's not my intentions for these videos to show up in the kiddie section. Okay. I don't know how they got that way, but I tried to change them all back. But now they're not uploading. And again, I don't necessarily. I think what I'll do is I'll go in today and I'm going to try to make them, at least get them organized a little bit so you can be like, oh, these are the ones where he's just sleeping, or these are just the ones where it's during the day and there's nothing in there, you know? And maybe I'll rename some or something because as simple as they are, and you're like, duh, duh. Well, if it's so duh, then why can't we just live that way? Why do I have to worry? Which for now, and I'm guessing, I don't know, because it didn't. That's what really frustrates me when I can't even have a position where I say, hey, remember, I'm not gonna bother you spend time worrying about your sex life or trying to legislate anything because there ain't nothing I can do about it anyways, and never really cared anyways. Remember, I went to the gay 90s at once with some friends and had some gay friends, probably played basketball with some gay guys a few times, I'm sure. Probably took showers with lots of gay guys down at Target Center underneath the Timberwolves place for about 20 years. Probably. But I read this Bible now, I'm born again. Ye must be born again. Now, I didn't say it's perfect. Oh, I sin, but I trust in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior and his blood atonement at the cross of Calvary. And that means when I screw up, I go to that blood. I don't give up and say, I don't go Carl Atheist on you and go, oh, sex and drugs and fun. No, I say, hey, I'm going to keep trying. I'm not going to give up and go join the Diablos team. Mm-mm. No, because I don't want to go to hell for eternity. So, if y'all can come and talk about whatever you want on your YouTube videos and talk about mean stuff and be mean, which you want to talk about some people being mean to Big Don. I mean, I'm nothing. I'm a church choir boy. But that guy, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder how they think there's no way they actually really think he's going to be president in 4 years. Do they really believe that? Because if they do, I'm starting to wonder what's going on. Like maybe there's a little truth to what some of these people have been saying about his mental capacity. If him and Junior Mints think they're going to be president again, I mean, I just think they're bored. It's that locker room talk that Michelle Bachmann was talking about. It's just kind of one, they got so excited because there was that mirror, there was that, and so they got used to that, and they're like, that was great. And now they can't believe initially that they're, well, I'm not sure what it is, but I mean, they don't really believe that, do they? Because if they do, then I'm starting to see that there's a little something going on up here that is not quite right. I mean, I can find plenty of stuff to say about the Tutti Frutti liberals too, but oh, believe me, I can. But I'm just saying that I recognize what people are saying. Like, if you really believe that, no. Okay. So, anyways, let's read Mark 8. Jesus feeds 4,000. This is out of the New Living Translation. If there's anybody out there on YouTube, never know. Could be one. Jesus said, hey, I'm going to leave the 99 and go get that one. I'm not going to be like Bad Boy and break the ankle and give it a hairline fracture. Break that sheep's foot so it can't go nowhere. I'm not doing that. I don't see it. Where's that in the Bible? Did I miss that part? And yeah, everything does happen in a reason. Bad Boy. Everything does, according to this here. I can make the argument that everything happens in God's word for a reason. There is a reason for everything. The creator of the universe, maybe we don't know it, but he's got reason and may probably explain it to us one day. Yeah, so I'm going to disagree with you there forever. Jesus feeds 4,000. About this time, another large crowd had gathered, and the people ran out of food again. Jesus called his disciples and told them, I feel sorry for these people. They have been here with me for 3 days, and they have nothing left to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will faint along the way, for some of them have come a long distance." His disciples replied, "How are we supposed to find enough food to feed them out here in the wilderness?" Jesus asked. "How much bread do you have?" "7 loaves," they replied. So Jesus told all the people to sit down on the ground. Then he took the 7 loaves, thanked God for them, and broke them into pieces. He gave them to his disciples, who distributed the bread to the crowd. A few small fish were found too, so Jesus also blessed these and told the disciples to distribute them. They ate as much as they wanted. Afterward, the disciples picked up 7 large baskets of leftover food. There were about 4,000 people in the crowd that day, and Jesus sent them home after they had eaten. Immediately after this, he got into a boat with his disciples and crossed over the region of Dalmanutha. Pharisees demand a miraculous sign. See, it would be a Pharisee that would demand that you do something like you do a layup instead of a free throw. That would be a Pharisee. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had arrived, they came and started to argue with him, testing him. They demanded that he show them a miraculous sign from heaven to prove his authority. When he heard this, he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why do these people keep demanding a miraculous sign? I tell you the truth. I will not give this generation any such sign." So he got back into the boat and left them, and he crossed to the other side of the lake. Woof. This is this is a lot of reading. Maybe we're on to something here. Wow. Maybe that's helping. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. And when they banned me off Christian chat, I pretty much was not I was pretty much not a Trump fan anymore at that point. Remember, because in order to get on that website, you had to identify as Trump, the president. And like, I respect the officer, but when Joshua Vance started talking about his creepy gloves, and I kind of took that as a sign from God. And that Junior Mints guy, I mean, he makes me pretty nervous. I'll be honest. Not yellow belly, just, I don't know. There's something about little guys that want to intimidate you when they're not, I don't know, just because of their money. Because, I mean, he's not married or anything. I mean, so that's not cool. And now personally, I'm starting to get a little concerned for the mental faculties of Big Don. I mean, if I mean, it's time. It's time to move on, Big Don. It's time to realize that you're not in the market for a duck call anymore here, Big Don. So I'm just saying. Maybe Eric, just because he's a nice guy, or he's really good at faking it. The yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. But the disciples had forgotten to bring any food. They had only one loaf of bread with them in the boat. As they were crossing the lake, Jesus warned them, "Watch out, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and of Herod." At this, they began to argue with each other because they hadn't brought any bread. Jesus knew what they were saying, so he said, "Why are you arguing about having no bread? Don't you know or understand even yet? Are your hearts too hard to take it in? You have eyes, can't you see? You have ears, can't you hear? Don't you remember anything at all? When I fed the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread, how many baskets of leftovers did you pick up afterward?" 12, they said. "And when I fed the 4,000 with 7 loaves, how many large baskets of leftovers did you pick up?" 7, they said. "Don't you understand yet?" he asked them. Jesus heals a blind man. When they arrived at Bethsaida, some people brought a blind man to Jesus, and they begged him to touch the man and heal him. I gotta be quiet. I don't wanna wake up anybody that's sleeping. Can you still hear me if I talk, if I do like this? When they arrived at Bethsaida, some people brought a blind man to Jesus, and they begged him to touch the man and heal him. Jesus took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. Then, spitting on the man's eyes, he laid his hands on him and asked, "Can you see anything now?" The man looked around. "Yes," he said, "I see people, but I can't see them very clearly. They look like trees walking around." Then Jesus placed his hands, and see, I supported Big Don, and Don didn't keep the SWAT team out of here for me. So yeah, and now he still thinks he's going to be president. Yeah, we're gonna have to put somebody else on the ticket. I'm just saying. Jesus took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. Then, spitting on the man's eyes, he laid his hands on him and asked, "Can you see anything now?" The man looked around. "Yes," he said, "I see people, but I can't see them very clearly. They look like trees walking around." Then Jesus placed his hands on the man's eyes again, and his eyes were opened. His sight was completely restored, and he could see everything clearly. Jesus sent him away, saying, "Don't go back into the village on your way home." Preparing for Jerusalem. It kind of sounds like Jesus maybe when he said, "Don't go down into the housetop. Don't go down. Don't go back." And preparing for Jerusalem. Ministry outside Galilee. Peter's declaration of faith. Jesus and his disciples left Galilee and went up to the villages near Caesarea Philippi. As they were walking along, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" "Well," they replied, "some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say you are one of the other prophets." Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" Peter replied, "You are the Messiah." But Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. First, Jesus predicts his death. Then Jesus began to tell them that the Son of Man must suffer many terrible things and be rejected by the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed, but 3 days later he would rise from the dead. As he talked about this openly with his disciples, Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him for saying such things. Jesus turned around and looked at his disciples, then reprimanded Peter. "Get away from me, Satan," he said. "You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's." Teaching about discipleship. Then, calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, If if any if any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake and for the sake of the good news, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my message in these adulterous and sinful days, the Son of Man will be ashamed of that person when he returns in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. Besides, I like to use instruments when I worship God. I like the music and stuff, and I think those instruments help out. And so, yeah, I probably won't be going to a Church of Christ ever. Well, not, I mean, no, it wouldn't, definitely isn't my first choice. Just saying. I like the music and some of those basic instruments. Pretty sure it goes back to that. Remember the college gal with the braces and carrying that clarinet box? She's not too cool for it, even in college. Oh, yeah. Now we're talking. Do they still got C-SPAN? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, seriously, like, if Big Don can't realize if he can't realize that Junior Mints and Guilfoyle ain't gonna run things, and he actually thinks he's gonna be on the ticket in 4 years when should be in a retirement home, if he can't realize and put his support now and get up and figure out that right today, I can't support you because you're mentally, you're not, all your faculties aren't there, sir. So either you're in denial or whatever they're talking about, they're on to something. I'm just saying. Look, I call it the way it is. I'm the zebra. I don't really. I'm neutral. I'm like the referee. I'm just telling you objectively. I'm not in your cult or any of that, and I'm not with the tutti fruities. I'm right down the middle, and I'm gonna tell you honest. I'll tell you the truth about everything. How long they'll let that go? Well, I guess we'll see. But if you take that away, and I'm respectful and you start saying, oh, that guy says, oh, homosexuality is a sin. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's about 10 gazillion other guys like me that probably can recognize that Trump ought to put his support behind somebody else today, unless he's unless he's up to something else, then there's probably no hope for America. Which is bizarre, because I'm telling you, that guy is not, he is one smart cookie too. You don't go to the Wharton School of Finance. So he's got to be up to something else. Right? Because he can't be. Says he doesn't have a drinking problem, but we do have pictures with Epstein where he's holding a beer or some kind of liqueur or something. So apparently he's had a drink here and there. What he meant was is like on a regular basis, I think. The stories about feeding the 4,000 and the 5,000 are similar. All four Gospels report the earlier feeding of the 5,000. I'm telling you, I'm trying to be reasonable here, never again. And Corey, that guy that started the feminist movement. Okay, I'm trying to be reasonable, but if you start acting like that, if you start getting like Ho and all of a sudden you get amnesia about where, butter knives and bow and arrows, I ain't going anywhere with you. The stories about feeding the 4,000 and 5,000 are similar. All four Gospels report not Corey, because remember we had that dream. So I'm not saying her about that, but we start going down that line, because that's the problem. Them same people that started that feminist movement, they with them other ones, and they're getting real radical. Those are the ones who are saying, hey, you see how they got us snookered here? You got old Corey, right, saying, hey, get over in that New Testament, son. I'm trying to help you here. You want to go fishing? I know a couple of them gals in them dresses still too. And she's like, but hey, them other guys, they're hanging out with Dusty. You don't want to go over there. and then you're like, but these ones here are trying to tell us we can't say this though, too, Corey. Remember? So they got me snookered. They're gonna kill me over. They're gonna murder me over that way. But yet, if I go that way, they're gonna say I can't read this. And you want me to get in a camp? And I'm saying, how? I'm saying, nah, I'm gonna go right there, straight down the middle, okay? All four Gospels report the earlier feeding of the 5,000, but only Mark and Matthew record the feeding of the 4,000 as a separate miracle. Okay, now why couldn't these two guys get this here? Why couldn't they get this the same? Well, they got four Gospels. The details of the events are different. The last reference to a large crowd was at the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus showed compassion because the people were like sheep without a shepherd. These stories reflect Jesus' concern for the total person. This time especially for the people's hunger. They were in the wilderness and had no food.
They had been with Jesus for 3 days and had nothing to eat, and they had come a long way and needed to eat before returning home. The disciples' frustration at the situation reveals their dullness. They knew how God provided manna in the wilderness for his people in Moses' time. They were now in the presence of one far greater than Moses, and had recently seen him feed a greater number of people in a similar situation. However, they still did not understand. Even so, Jesus worked through them to bring physical and spiritual food to the hungry. What they could not do by themselves, the mighty Son of God would do through them. 7 loaves. Numerous attempts have been made to allegorize the numbers in the two feeding miracles, but the lack of consensus among these interpretations, and the reference to a few fish in the present story, suggests that the numbers are not symbolic. None of the Gospel writers associate any clear significance with these numbers, and this should warn us against doing so. As with the feeding of the 5,000, the purpose of the numbers is to magnify the greatness of the miracle in Jesus. Took, thanked God, distributed. These terms foreshadow the Last Supper. They ate as much as they wanted. The superabundance of food shows the all-surpassing nature of God's kingdom and the one who brought it. As in the earlier feeding miracle, the feeding of the 4,000 is followed by Jesus crossing the Sea of Galilee by boat, and the Pharisees initiating a dispute, demanding that Jesus perform some miraculous sign. The location of Dalmanutha is unknown. Matthew has Magadan instead of Dalmanutha. And good luck with that. The antagonism of the Pharisees was persistent. The request for a sign is at times acceptable, but in this case it was obstinate testing of God. The sought-after sign was not a healing, an exorcism, a raising from the dead, or a nature miracle. For there had been many of these already, and Jesus' ability to work such signs was well known, even to the Pharisees. What they sought was a miraculous sign from heaven, that is, directly from God, that would demonstrate once for all that Jesus was the Christ. No sign, however, could ever convince them of this, for those whose hearts were open to the truth. The miracles that Jesus had already done were clear and irrefutable signs that Jesus was the Messiah, the Son of God. For those outside, no sign could make them believe. He sighed deeply. I tell you the truth. Jesus' response was as strong as an oath, meaning, may God's judgment fall upon me if I give this generation any such sign. Such oaths express an unbending commitment. Jesus elsewhere describes this generation as adulterous and sinful and faithless. This account of the journey across the Sea of Galilee reflects on Jesus' greatness as manifested in the two feeding miracles, and emphasizes the dullness of the disciples who do not see, hear, or understand because of their hardened hearts. The reference to having only one loaf of bread reminds leaders of recent occasions when the disciples had not had enough bread and Jesus miraculously provided enough bread to feed thousands of people. Matthew says that the yeast of the Pharisees refers to their false teaching. It could also refer to their unbelief and hardness of heart. The reference to Herod could refer to his unwillingness to accept what he knew to be true. The disciples completely missed the point of Jesus' warning and forgot that because Jesus was with them, their supply of bread was irrelevant. Jesus asked 8 questions that rebuked the disciples. They, of all people, should have been aware of the miraculous power of the Son of God. Although the disciples still remembered the feeding miracles, they never considered the implications for their immediate situation. Jesus' questions precisely recalled the feeding miracles. Don't you understand yet? This question implies a time when they would truly understand. Mark's readers knew that Jesus' resurrection would give the disciples understanding of Jesus' identity and power. Earlier, Jesus and the disciples set out unsuccessfully for Bethsaida. Here, they arrive, and Jesus heals a blind man. Only Mark has this two-part healing. It might connect with the opening of the disciples' spiritual eyes in the next account. John identifies Bethsaida as the home of Peter, Andrew, James, and John. This small fishing village, although technically part of Gaulonitis, was generally considered part of Galilee. It was relocated and given status as a city by Philip the Tetrarch. Spitting on a man's eyes, attempts to diagnose the man's exact medical condition are speculative and unprofitable, diverting attention from the miracle. The healing was not instantaneous. The man was imperfectly at first. Jesus' second laying on of hands brought complete healing. Who is this man who stills the sea and heals the blind? Peter reveals this in the next account. He is the Messiah. The story ends with Jesus telling the healed man to keep the event a secret. Yeah. Peter's declaration of Jesus as Messiah and Jesus' first prediction of his death mark a turning point in Mark's gospel and a new stage in Jesus' life. The question, who is this man, raised by the disciples and is now answered by Peter. Philip the Tetrarch, son of Herod the Great, built Caesarea Philippi on the slopes of Mount Hermon, about 25 miles north of the Sea of Galilee. The more famous Caesarea on the coast had been built by Philip's father. Who do the people say I am? As a good teacher, Jesus asked a question to elicit his disciples' understanding. The response is similar to John the Baptist, see notes on, one of the other prophets. Jesus was clearly considered a prophet. But who do you say I am? In the Greek text, you is emphatic. Peter responded for the group, you are the Messiah. Peter's confession was correct, as the command not to tell anyone about him indicates. Then Jesus began to teach the disciples that he would suffer and be killed in Jerusalem and 3 days later rise from the dead. Jesus now explicitly predicted what he had revealed in veiled form. In response, Peter objected. So Jesus taught him and the other disciples the nature of his mission and what it really means to follow him. It was a divine necessity that Jesus must suffer. The immediate cause for Jesus' suffering was the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. But the ultimate cause was the will of God. Jesus' death would not be the end. For 3 days later, he would rise from the dead. 3 days later, as a synonym for on the third day, and after 3 days and 3 nights. Peter understood what Jesus had said, but he did not accept it. Peter shared the popular idea that the Messiah was to be a victorious national ruler, so he thought Jesus' talk of suffering the death was nonsense. Jesus looked at his disciples before he publicly rebuked Peter. He wanted them to understand that Peter was wrong. Get away from me, Satan. Does not mean that Peter was demon-possessed. Peter spoke from a human point of view, not from God's, so he unwittingly spoke for Satan. I don't know about all that. The God of this world and repeated Satan's temptation. Jesus' invitation to his disciples and the crowd lays out the cost of being his follower. To turn from your selfish ways involves letting Jesus determine your goals and purposes in life. To take up your cross is metaphorical. It indicates that faithfulness to Jesus must extend, if required, even to the point of death. Give me liberty or donuts. To follow Jesus' teaching and example is a continual commitment. If you try to hang on to, literally save your life by keeping it from Jesus, you will lose it in the end. You will lose it in the next world. But if you lose it to Jesus and his cause, the spread of the good news, you will save it forever. The implied answer to Jesus' rhetorical question is that possessing the entire world has no value if you give up eternal life. He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. You need your soul to enjoy the benefits of the world to come. When you forfeit your life or soul, there is nothing you can give to purchase it back. When Jesus, as the Son of Man, returns in glory to judge the world, he will be ashamed of those who are ashamed to be identified with him and his message. Boy, that's a long one today. Hey, honey. Good morning. Hey, Tweety. How's my little fluff ball? How's my little fluffy ball? How's my fluff ball? Hi, Tweety. Did you want to make medicine this morning? No? Did you want a little bit or not? You want to wait? How do you feel? How you feeling? You want your little medicine, Tweety? Are you just waking up? You're yawning? Yes. Hey, honey. Would you like a little medication? Sweetheart? Hmm? Hey, sweetie. Would you like some or not? Can I give you some? Oh, good morning. Oh, you still yawning? Do you want to wait a little while? We can wait a little while. Want to wait till you wake up for a little while? We can wait a little while. Let's wait a little while then. Yeah. All right, so this is the Life Application Study Bible portion of the reading this morning. This is a different miracle from the feeding of the 5,000 described in chapter 6. At that time, those fed were mostly Jews. This time, Jesus was ministering to a non-Jewish crowd in the Gentile region of the 10 towns. Jesus' actions and message were beginning to have an impact on large numbers of Gentiles. That Jesus would compassionately minister to non-Jews was very reassuring to Mark's primarily Roman audience. How could the disciples experience so many of Jesus' miracles and yet be so slow to comprehend who he was? They had already seen Jesus feed over 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Yet here they doubted whether he could feed another large group. Sometimes we are also slow to catch on. Although Christ has brought us through trials and temptations in the past, we don't believe that he will do so in the future. Is your heart too closed to take in all that God can do for you? Don't be like the disciples. Remember what Christ has done and have faith that he will do it again. Jesus gave thanks for the food, and he serves as a model for us. Life is a gift, and the nourishment life requires, while it comes from the work of many hands, conveys God's material blessing. Mealtime provides an opportunity to thank God for daily needs met, for taste and beauty, and for human company and divine companionship. Giving thanks keeps us from regarding a plate of food as a trough, our stomachs as bottomless pits, and our gathering to eat as a bothersome interruption. Yeah, there we go. Sitting down with for a meal together. Keep up the good tradition of praying and thanking God before your meals. Let your gratefulness to God be genuine. The Pharisees had tried to explain away Jesus' previous miracles by claiming they were done by luck, coincidence, or evil power. Here they demanded a sign from heaven, something only God could do. Jesus refused their demand because he knew that even this kind of miracle would not convince them. Yeah, so we're talking salad in hand. They had already decided not to believe. Hearts can become so hard that even the most convincing facts and demonstrations will not change them. Mark mentions the yeast of the Pharisees and of Herod, while Matthew talks about the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Mark's audience, mostly non-Jews, would have known about Herod, but not necessarily about the Jewish religious sect of the Sadducees. Thus, Mark quoted the part of Jesus' statement that his readers would understand. This reference to Herod may mean the supporters of Herod, a group of Jews who supported the king. Many supporters of Herod were also Sadducees. Yeast in this passage symbolizes evil. Just as only a small amount of yeast is needed to make a batch of bread rise, so the hard-heartedness of the religious and political leaders could permeate and contaminate the entire society and make it rise up against Jesus. Why did Jesus touch the man a second? Why did Jesus touch the man a second time before he could see? This miracle was not too difficult for Jesus, but he chose to do it in stages, possibly to show the disciples that some healing would be gradual rather than instantaneous, or to demonstrate that spiritual truth is not always perceived clearly at first. Before Jesus left, however, the man was healed completely. Caesarea Philippi was an especially pagan city known for its worship of Greek gods and its temples devoted to the ancient god Pan. Pan, that's the thing the wife comes at you with. That thing, if you really make her mad, she comes at you with the frying pan and they never take her to jail ever. Unless it's Leslie. Yeah, that one. The ruler Philip referred to in changed the city's name from Caesarea to Caesarea Philippi so that it would not be confused with the coastal city of Caesarea, the capital of the territory ruled by his brother Herod Antipas. This pagan city where many gods were recognized was a fitting place for Jesus to ask the disciples to recognize him as the Son of God. For the entire story of John the Baptist, see Mark. For the story of Elijah, see 1 Kings and 2 Kings. Jesus asked the disciples who other people thought he was. Then he asked them the same question. Is it not enough to know what others say about Jesus? You must know, understand, and accept for yourself that he is the Messiah. You must move from curiosity to commitment, from admiration to adoration. Why did Jesus warn his own disciples not to tell anyone the truth about him? Jesus knew they needed more instruction about the work he would accomplish through his death and resurrection. Without more teaching, the disciples would have only half the picture. When they confessed Jesus as the Christ, they still didn't know all that it meant. The name for Jesus, Son of Man, is Jesus' most common title for himself. It comes from Dan 7:13, where the Son of Man is a heavenly figure who in the end times has authority and power. The name refers to Jesus as the Messiah, the representative man, the human agent of God who is vindicated by God. In this passage, Son of Man is linked closely with Peter's confession of Jesus as the Christ and confirms its messianic significance. From this point on, Jesus spoke plainly and directly to his disciples about his death and resurrection. He began to prepare them for what was going to happen to him by telling them 3 times that he would soon die. In this moment, Peter was not considering God's purposes, but only his own natural human desires and feelings. Peter wanted Christ to be king, but not the suffering servant prophesied in Isaiah 53. He was ready to receive the glory of following the Messiah, but not the persecution. The Christian life is not a paved road to wealth and ease. It often involves hard work, persecution, deprivation, and deep suffering. Peter saw only part of the picture. Don't repeat his mistake. Instead, focus on the good that God can bring out of apparent evil and the resurrection that follows the crucifixion. How is that possible? Peter was often the spokesman for all the disciples. In singling him out, Jesus may have been addressing all of them indirectly. Unknowingly, the disciples were trying to prevent Jesus from going to the cross and thus fulfilling his mission on earth. Satan also tempted Jesus to avoid the way of the cross. Whereas Satan's motives were evil, the disciples were motivated by love and admiration for Jesus. Nevertheless, the disciples' job was not to guide and protect Jesus, but to follow him. Only after Jesus' death and resurrection would they fully understand why he had to die. The Romans, Mark's original audience, knew what taking up the cross meant. Death on a cross was a form of execution used by Rome for dangerous criminals. A prisoner carried his own cross to the place of execution. Or what? You're about to kill me, like, oh, you whipping me a few more times? Like, you carry the cross. Yeah. Signifying submission to Rome's power. Jesus used the image of carrying a cross to illustrate the ultimate submission required of his followers. He is not against pleasure, nor was he saying that we should seek pain needlessly. Jesus was talking about the heroic effort needed to follow him moment by moment, to do his will even when the work is difficult and the future looks bleak. We should be willing to lose our life for the sake of the good news, not because our life is useless, but because nothing, not even life itself, can compare to what we gain with Christ. Jesus wants us to choose to follow him rather than to lead a life of sin and self-satisfaction. He wants us to stop trying to control our own destiny and to let him direct us. This makes good sense because as the Creator, Christ knows better than we do what real life is about. He asks for submission, not self-hatred. He asks us only to lose our self-centered determination to be in charge. You see how I'm fair and balanced? For example, you know when Granddaddy Wizard Trump came out for the photo op after all the riots outside the White House, and did that photo? There was one black woman and 25 white people, and he held that up across the street, and you wonder why people are want to burn the White House down. So no, you don't. So I understand, but at the same time, again, now we're back to right here, folks. I just defended objectively why people are upset with Trump, and they wonder why he would make a comment like, "Oh, there's good people on both sides." Yeah, you remember them, all them guys with the swastikas and those. They sound like Gomer Pyle, you know them ones. Yeah, and they're like, "What did you just say, dude?"
yeah, now we're really gonna burn the piss out of everything. And they're like, you're like, well, okay, but remember, I'm a Yankee from the north, and it's really dangerous. If I go over to not St. Paul, but Murverapolis, BB, it's pretty dangerous. A lot more dangerous than St. Paul. Except you're a polar bear, and you know all the polar bears. That's why it's more dangerous for me. What you say? Look, you say it like this, man. You're like, hey, honk honk. You're like, don't cut them off, dude. Not preventably, but help me. Hey, you're like, well, so here's the deal. Don't expect me to be. This is the other. This is part of the problem that some white people see. Is it's almost like there's this attitude of self white hatred, or what is it right here? What did I just read? Self. I know this isn't political, but we need to hear this, folks. Well, this is the kind of thing if we're going to come together this is the kind of stuff we have to be reasonable and talk about. Self hatred. Now, I've described it on Pal Talk as it seems to me that some of these people they don't care that I was a Yankee. My grandfather fought in World War II, helped free the Jews from the pizza oven, from the pizza Nazis. I grew up around black people. I grew up in one of the most racist counties in Minnesota. I probably live in the last most racist county there is, and or one of them, and also, uh, um, it feels like people are not going to be happy until. Now, I'm going to be honest. What it feels like. It feels like people are so upset about the remember the guys in the boats that got the boom boom, and I understand that the Native American treaties they're changing all. I'm more with Hegseth along. Like I say, we keep it so that we remember and we don't repeat that as a reminder. And besides, then it's cost more money to change all the maps, and I gotta do all that. And what do you want me to? I mean, it's just costing me more money here, and so I'm like, but I guess if we can stop there, but it's this self. It's like it feels like these people will not be happy until every white person is completely homeless, out of a job, out of every position of power, either dead, gone, or living under a park bench, homeless. I think that's part of the reason why some people are a little resistant to things like reparations. Like, why? Like, if you find that I'm unfit, if you think I'm a racist because I'm not, why do I need to pay for something some ancestors, not even directly related or indirectly, for 400 years had anything to do with that? Why can't we? Why do I have to pay for that? Is what I'm saying. I'm not saying we don't need some more programs and some more affirmative action, but and I'm not saying that we need to get rid of these guys that are flying around with goats and $1,000 champagne bottles like Never Again wants to do. She's like, hey, Amazon, hey, jerk, hey, why don't you help us out here a little bit? Why don't you make this? I understand what she's saying, but yet we have to kind of come together a little bit so that I can feel comfortable going down to Minneapolis, where I grew up, and not feel like anybody 30 and under, if they see a white guy and there's 5 or 6 of them, just for fun, they might just beat the piss out of you. Can we get back to the point where we're not there? And I don't know how we do that, but if we don't expect there's not going to be some resistance. You see, don't expect self-white hate from everybody, especially from guys like me who are middle of the road. And the problem is this attitude or this what I just described is very reasonable. It's very moderate. It's caring. It's compassionate, and it's honest, and it's factual. And if you can't stay in that lane, there's going to be no hope. It's going to be we're going to continue to see the fighting, because I didn't do slavery. I didn't break any Native American treaties, and I don't care if my ancestors did 400. I mean, I care, but I didn't have anything to do with it. And I live here too, and I'm not. I understand what you're saying, but if you're going to treat me like I can never be part of society unless I hate myself, that's not going to work either. You see what I'm saying? So hopefully that's not too offensive, but that's what we need to hear. He asks us only to lose our self-centered determination to be in charge. And yeah, we need more people. We need, like Biden's doing. Now, I don't agree with those. They're all about butter knives and bow and arrows. They don't like fishing or hunting. But, they got a lot of those 18 to 30, maybe in a dress, if you're real nice, and salad and stuff. And you're like, I'm getting kind of old here. Maybe I don't need to go fishing, but hey, I ain't real them butter knives in the middle of the night. Oof. When it becomes $50 bills in a wheelbarrow for a loaf of bread, you're gonna want something more than a bow and arrow, maybe. Okay? Or a butter knife. Or just to go hunting, remember? Because you still to fillet the fish. See those guys down there? See how I agree I'm fair and balanced? Why you can't fillet a fish? Like, it's not shooting a deer. Like, I could see, like, hey, maybe that's a little traumatic for a young child that maybe doesn't want to. We don't want to show them the killing of an but it's a fish. It's filleting a fish. I mean, like, I could never understand. Obviously, and that's the problem we see. Like, if you're gonna go after somebody for an underlying issue, we're never gonna work this out unless they actually do something on Facebook that violates something that's inappropriate. You can't go behind the scene and go, well, we don't like them because they're them super duper crazy conservatives running around with Trump. And, because Willie Robertson is in the White House in the Secret Service and he likes paperwork. You can't go after them just because they're filleting a fish. It's not reasonable. It's not rational. And that's why people start to get mad. Regular moderate people like myself, okay, forget about how much money you got. I'm not impressed with your money. $50 bills in a wheelbarrow. And you're not even married, and you got a divorce, and you don't go to church, and you don't read this, and you like to do one of them. You don't impress me. You might have more money and more power, but it don't mean nothing to me. He asks us only to lose our self-centered determination to be in charge. Many people spend all their energy seeking pleasure. Jesus said, however, and if I can't be honest like that, give me donuts, fine. If I can't tell you the truth the way I see it, and it makes sense, if you're honest, then I say our republic's in very big trouble, and that's why you got guys like Don running around thinking they might be president again in 4 years. Okay, and you got people blindly following him like they're in a cult who refute are they on drugs? If they think Big Don is going to be that makes me nervous. I hope they're part of some larger cabal, some that they must be part of that. What do you call it? The Illuminati or something. It's all part of their. I own both these golf courses here. I don't care which one you go, Eldorado or that one across the street. It doesn't matter. I own them both, and I'm playing this game, and it doesn't matter. And I do whatever I want. And I got Tourette's, Many people spend all their energy seeking pleasure. Jesus said, however, that worldliness, which is centered on possessions, position, or power, is ultimately worthless. Whatever you have on earth is only temporary. It cannot be exchanged for your soul. If you work hard at getting what you want, you might eventually have a pleasurable life, but in the end, you will find it hollow and empty. Are you willing to make the pursuit of God more important than the selfish pursuits? Follow Jesus. Keep your eyes on Jesus.
The devil's doing everything he can to get us to focus on other things in life. We're in this carcass called flesh, and it's tough, folks. And if you're trying to do this, the devil's going to do everything he can to convince you that not only are you not worthy, but you shouldn't be doing this. And when you screw up, you got to throw it in the garbage and go follow Satan and give up. No, you repent, you go to the cross, and you keep trying, and you and try to keep your eyes on Jesus and not your wife. Not You got to keep Jesus number one, or nothing works out. Jesus constantly Many people spend all their energies, I'll read it again. Many people spend all their energy seeking pleasure. Jesus said, however, that worldliness, which is centered on possessions, position, or power, is ultimately worthless. Whatever you have on earth is only temporary. It cannot be exchanged for your soul. If you work hard at getting what you want, you might eventually have a pleasurable life, but in the end, you will find it hollow and empty. Are you willing to make the pursuit of God more important than the selfish pursuits? Follow Jesus, and you will know what it means to live abundantly now and to have eternal life as well. Jesus constantly turns the world's perspective upside down with talk of first and last, saving and losing. Here he gives us a choice. We can reject Jesus now and be rejected by him at his second coming, or we can accept him now and be accepted by him then. Rejecting Christ may help us escape shame for the time being, but it will guarantee an eternity of shame later. Hey, if I have to live in a legal system that's corrupt like Tijuana, you can have it. I don't care. I come from a time there's no question we were the greatest country on God's green earth without a question. We basically stopped the Jews from being holocausted completely in the pizza oven by the pizza Nazis. We were instrumental in that. Now we have Hollyweird in the porn industry, and we've got drugs pouring over the border. So Big Don was kind of right. Hey, can we try to stop this? Sure, they're going to fly in. See that now? This is another thing I don't understand. So just because some mules are going to figure out a way to go over, and most of the drugs they say are coming in that way now, what would be wrong with doing everything as part of it? Seems reasonable to me to try to stop people from just walking in here with drugs. We've got a lot of people that came here fairly. My ancestors came through Ellis Island. So unless you truly are trying to completely destroy America, then I can't be on board with that either, regardless of what my white ancestors did. Then I don't know how we figure this out. And the buildings will keep burning, I'm sure. And the Eldorados will still keep coming after me. And the never agains will say, hey, you're unfit for society. And I guess I take my Bible and go for a hike. Because otherwise, if we can't be honest about stuff, you might as well forget it. Like if you're that convoluted that you think, you know what I mean? So yeah. Big Don, he didn't help me out there, did he? Nah. He might have sent him in. Wouldn't that be weird? Wouldn't that be ironic? Hi, honey. Here, sweetheart. Can I give you a medicine? Come on, babies. Come on, guys. Come on. Come here. Come on. Come on. Come on, sweetheart. And I don't mean to be, I'm very humble and very grateful. But again, we're going back to what I just read. Don't exchange this life temporarily to go farther in accounting. In other words, don't keep my mouth quiet about the truth in the Bible so I can get it further. You know what I said? I mean, we're not lacking accountants. I really enjoy accountancy. Yeah, I like being a bean counter. It's pretty simple. Usually, if you've got somebody to answer a few questions, it's pretty straightforward. Unless you're going to be a forensic accountant. Okay, sure. But if I got to be silent on matters, simple matters that I see, and I can't have my First Amendment in the United States of America, and I have to worry about my safety or people lying about me, making stuff up about me, and I can't even speak the Bible anymore, forget it. I don't want it. I don't care about accountancy. And I'm kind of getting tired of being pushed around. So, or bullied. Okay? And I'm not going to jump in a 6-foot hole or bend over and grab the ankles like Rush Limbaugh used to say. Is he still alive? And no, I didn't agree with the obscene profit margins. Never have. So if I can't call it like it is, then I don't give me donuts. Then fine. I just, it's not worth it. But y'all, I understand where they're coming from, and I'm trying to say, hey, can we talk about it without the polar bear eating me, and without you wanting to burn all the buildings down? Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. But this whole gotta be reasonable, because them polar bears are not reasonable at all. Those are the guys that they got, a few of them got in the White House there, and I'm pretty sure if you keep lowering their mic like that, not me. Yeah, they're polar bears, and they kind of started the whole thing, and they're gonna be like, they might go kamikaze or something. Not me. They might start to get kind of frustrated, and that's what you're seeing too. Because remember the burning the buildings, that's okay because of slavery and breaking of treaties, and the white man is evil. And yeah, it's pretty scary when they come in with the SWAT team with the polar bear across the street. Sure, that's scary. I don't want that. But I don't want to have to live under a park bench either, just because society has said all white people are evil either. So just be honest. Says the truth. The truth will set you free. That's all I'm saying. But I gotta go for a while. I'll be gone most of the day, probably until the afternoon Bible reading. But if you were around listening, or you do listen to this ever, or you come across this, consider what I'm saying. It's not rocket science. I don't have Tourette's. I'm just saying. Okay? I'll see y'all later.